Welcome along to Footy Talks, presented by Benjamin Moore, Luke, Stephen, and KJ here as we are a little under 24 hours out from TFC's final game of the group stage as Group C wraps up Tuesday at the MLS Is Back tournament. It's going to be a long day Tuesday for Group C. TFC against New England Revolution, the early morning game at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And then we're all going to be still there at 10:30 at night for the Impacts game against DC United. But we love it, hey? We love it.
We're not complaining, are we? We've had 4 months without a match, so you know, Stevie, you're not going to to be tired, are you? You're going to be. You're going to be fine for this. Stevie's going to go run 10K in between the matches as well, so he'd be fine.
Yeah, a couple of coffees, Pro Plus, just keep us up, just in case we're getting a little bit tired. Red Bulls, we'll be fine.
9 a.m. is when it gets started for TFC in the morning. And I think just before we get into everything, and a couple of great guests coming on at Footy Talks this week, Nick DeLeon, a reappearance for Nick DeLeon, who last time was on was fantastic, taking us through his goals in the playoffs last year. He'll be with us in about half an hour's time. And first up, we'll be joined by Canadian international forward, former TFC man, now with the Whitecaps, of course, Tosaint Ricketts as well. So looking forward to that. But I was going back and forth on message with KJ this morning because, Stevie, you know, he's the stats guy. He's the math man. He knows everything there is to know. And he loves a tournament. And he loves just sorting out who's going to finish in third place and what are all the scenarios. Seattle clinched last night their place through to the next round as the lowest they can finish is one of the third place finishers. TFC also have 4 points. They're not there just yet, KJ.
No, they're not.
Just explain how close TFC are to being into the next stage, what they need. We all know if they even draw on Tuesday morning that they got to finish top of the group. But how's it all working right now in terms of TFC and what they need to get through?
Well, first of all, you and I were talking about this at 1:30 in the morning in Studio 6 as well, doing a sports center hit after the.
Yeah, we didn't go that in depth though. 1:30.
We didn't. No, but we saved the in-depth stuff for our viewers on this show. That's what we can get more details. Look, if TFC can lose by 3 goals and they're still in, so. They're at their goal difference right now. They obviously won by 1 over Montreal, drew the other game, so they're at +1. Cincinnati can only get they're at -3. So if Cincinnati do qualify as a third place team, getting 4 points, their goal difference will be -3. So as long as you beat -3 on 4 points and finish third, you're fine. So even if TFC get beat by 3-0 in that game, and it's a big if, of course, but they're okay. I think that they're firmly set on, pacing themselves through to the knockout stages. But yeah, they're not, we saw in the morning game already that Group A, the third place team, has already finished on 3 points. That is very possible in other groups as well. And maybe even in Group F with the Houston Galaxy game, we could have 2 teams who don't even get to 3 points to finish third. So I think they're going to be fine. As I said, when you get 4 points in this format, traditionally you qualify. Only Norway 94 World Cup didn't do that.
I was waiting for that stat to come out. KJ knows everything. Norway, 1994.
Anytime I can talk about Norway, I'm fine. You want to talk about the wonderful country? Let's talk about how brilliant it is. I love it.
Or Sander Berge, the Norwegian international star of Sheffield United. Anyway, Stevie, TFC can finish top with a point. Talking to Greg Vanney and some of the players, it seems as if the real, they want to get the 3 points in terms of regular season points. We don't know what the league will look like coming out of this, but they want those regular season points as well. But it seems the big benefit right now isn't who you're going to play because nobody knows, and MLS, anything can happen. But it's maybe getting that extra day's rest. If they finish second, they play Saturday. They get an extra day's rest, play Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern time kickoff if they finish top of the group. And right now, I think Greg Vanney would admit every day counts.
Yeah, it's certainly in these conditions, every day counts. Every day of recovery will be better for the squad. I don't think they fear playing against anybody within this tournament. I think they want to win every game that they go into. So, everything's trending towards TFC going out there and obviously giving their absolute all to win the football match. So, I don't see. I think at this point, the third game of the group stage, I think there's sort of more relevance on the regular season points as well. I do think that every team will have a little bit, every head coach will have a little bit of his team talk to say, no matter where we are, we're on 0 points, we're on 4 points, we're on 6 points. This game's important because hopefully when we get back to a regular season, it's going to matter. So I think that will be mentioned again with TFC, and they'll be hoping to go out there and win against an Eastern Conference rival, and obviously get that Sunday game.
You weren't watching the first half, clearly, of Chicago San Jose last night.
Well, in fairness, I think that well, there wasn't a lot happening. There's no doubt about that. And Chicago was set up to be solid, but San Jose were trying. I thought San Jose were trying. So I really, felt a little bit sorry for San Jose. They had all the ball. They were trying to score. Chicago are a work in progress. They've brought in a lot of players. But I think I've been there, guys. Like, people say, oh, it looked like you were playing at 60%, 70%. I'll guarantee every guy's playing at 100%. Sometimes it looks like that. But I'm sure that all of these games will be competitive, however they look, whatever way they look.
I agree. And look, I don't want to I don't want to predict anything here, but I will say, that there's a chance, the disgrace of Dijon in 1982, where two teams just basically passed the ball back and forth, Germany and Austria, to make sure that they got through. That's definitely on here, by the way, because the Cincinnati Red Bulls game is happening last in that group. So if they just pass the ball back and forth and finish 0-0, they're both in. So because the games are not being played at the same time. So Atlanta have no idea. Atlanta can go out there and beat Columbus on Tuesday 9-0. It doesn't matter. If the other two teams pass the ball back and forth and draw 0-0, they're out. So that's unfortunately the problem when we're not having the games played at the same time. I don't think it'll happen, but I'm just saying that it's definitely on. There's a possible disgrace of Disney still to come.
It could, though, but I would say, like, the regular season, can you imagine you miss out because of 1 point or because you were messing around in some,
that's why they've done
tournament? Yeah, it's fantastic. So, if I was the head coach, I'd be saying, guys, it's absolutely vital we get 3 points here, no matter where we are. If you're the Whitecaps, you're on 0 points, you're still going into that third game saying, this is a very important match. Let's make sure we win it and we pick up 3 points.
Footy Talks presented by Benjamin Moore. All stores are open right now. Also, lots of ideas for you on the Benjamin Moore website at benjaminmoore.com. Let us know wherever you are around the world with us today, either on Zoom or on the Facebook page as well. Lots of people across the GTA. The furthest we've got right now is Matthew and Jamie, who are logging on from Regina. And right now, we're going to head to Vancouver for our first guest today. Former TFC man, now with Vancouver Whitecaps, Canadian international, of course. Tosaint Ricketts is joining us on the show. With him in just a couple of moments' time. We were in studio last night, KJ, for the Whitecaps game. Tall order now for them to get through.
Yeah, difficult game. We'll talk to Tos about that in a second. But, I felt for the Whitecaps last night. They're clearly missing proper leaders, and including this man right here. He's not able to join his team. So it's great to see him. How you doing, Tos?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Putting us all to absolute shame with that jersey display behind the back. That is one of the best.
This is actually,
I've ever seen.
I'm at training right now. This is Marty McDermott's kit room. So you see some special names back there and some former Whitecap players. So
give us a few here. We can't quite read the names. If you could give us a few of them, that'd be great.
I can see David there.
Got David Edgar over there, Jordan Harvey, Alfonso Davies, Ali Adnan. Montero's Sporting jersey there, Crepeau. So we got nice collection here.
That is absolutely spectacular, and beats Stevie's pretend bookshelf or whatever it is he usually tries to put in the background there.
It's just a wallpaper.
Yeah. Obviously not an easy time for you in terms of not being able to go with the team. What's it been like the last few weeks for you, and what are you doing right now? Is it just a case of training every day to make sure you're ready when everybody returns?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough. I was working hard after the quarantine and during the whole, when all the protocols and all the restrictions got lifted, I was working hard to make it to Orlando and help my team. But unfortunately, I was pulled out by the specialists. And I've just been here working hard, just doing what I can on my own, as well as staying within the guidelines.
So as you talk about it being tough, we were doing the game last night, Luke and I, the Whitecaps game. It's been a difficult time down there. We expected that with a lot of top players out like yourself. How's that been mentally for you? I know you a little bit, and I know teammates have always said, you're one of the best teammates that they had because you obviously try and look after each other. How's it been for you being so far away and not being able to make a difference for the team and the players that mean a lot to you?
It's been tough, It wasn't just me out, it was a lot of players out, and, our team was under, facing a lot of adversity and a lot of obstacles. And being such a young team, I felt like I needed to be there, just to lead, motivate during those hard times, because I'm no stranger to obstacles and tough environments. And, I thought I had a lot to add to this team during this tournament. And it was unfortunate to be pulled, but, this is just how it goes. I'm just going to keep working hard and be prepared for whatever happens after.
Tos, what have you heard from the bubble after what was a bit of a risky start, I guess, with people coming in at different times and a few positive cases? Is everyone pretty comfortable now, feeling confident in the process and out with the results? How are the Whitecaps guys?
Yeah, everyone's good. I mean, obviously the initial apprehensiveness and a little bit of timidness going down there with the early cases, caused a bit of stress, a little bit of apprehension, like I said. But now everything's fine. The bubble's great. The guys are comfortable. They're settled in, and they're focused on the matches. And yeah, it's kudos to MLS. They put out a plan that it was bumpy at the start, but everything's smoothed out and everyone's fine.
One of the things we've talked about before on this show is the fact that this tournament is giving a lot of people the chance to see a lot of games. Even TFC head coach Greg Vanney said to us a couple of days ago that maybe during a regular season, with all the travel you're doing, you don't have a chance to watch every single game that there is going in Major League Soccer. But right now, the games are spread out, morning, nighttime, a couple of games as well. Everyone's getting the opportunity to see other teams, some entertaining games, including that. I mean, the San Jose game, I don't know if you've ever seen one quite like that 4-3 for the Whitecaps with everything that was going on there. But what have you made of the whole tournament and the goals, I suppose? I mean, it would have been perfect for you because it seems like defending isn't exactly something that is being practiced right now in Orlando on a great deal of occasions.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that, players are just coming from quarantine. There's not much connection between the teammates, and, everyone's still trying to get fit and still trying to get that connectivity through the team. So, I mean, as a striker, it's a dream tournament. And, but I mean, for the neutral viewer, I think it's fantastic. A lot of knocks on soccer is that they're low-scoring games, not very entertaining, but I think the fans are getting what they want out of this. And for the neutral fan, I think it's been quite enjoyable.
And it certainly has goals for fun in the tournament. So let me talk a little bit about your journey to Vancouver. I know we've got a lot of Toronto FC fans on here, and we're going to get to your time in Toronto shortly. But obviously, you went to Europe, you played in Lithuania for a little bit, and then you get embraced by Vancouver. You get your contract extension. What's it been like being part of that club? And as you said, it's a younger club, giving you the option to maybe a bit more of a mentor. How have you liked your time with the Whitecaps so far? It's
been great. Obviously, I came from Lithuania. It was a place where I went for the opportunity to play in Europa League and Champions League qualifications, and that was the reason why I went there. And served its purpose. I went there, scored goals, and then got picked up by Vancouver. And since I've been here, it's been fantastic. The organization has been great. The changes in the front office with Axel Schuster and Mark DeSantos still getting into the role and still trying to make the team he wants. It's been nice to be a part of. And it's a very young team. A lot of new players. But you can see that hunger. And although we lost the first two games, you can see the hunger from the group and the desire to keep going, even when, their backs are against the wall, or even when, San Jose is pushing back on them. It's a group with a lot of character. And, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be a leader in this group.
Thomas, I want to ask you about Ayo Akinola, a guy that you'll know from your time in Toronto, and he's obviously burst onto the scene with this tournament. You're a guy that plays in that position, and you have the experience. What have you liked about his game, and what do you see in the maturation in him as a young man or a young football player coming into MLS Is Back?
That's exactly it. You see a maturity, you see a growth. From my time when I think Ayo just signed while I was there at TFC, and he's a young player. He has the physical capabilities. I see him being compared to Josie in a lot of ways in terms of the way he moves and the way he uses his body, and it's nice to see. I'm a fan of young players. I love to see them do well, and the two performances he put in have been very mature, and his goals have been class. And I'm happy for him, and I hope he keeps going.
When you look at your time in Toronto, we've got a highlight here that we're going to show you. A game that everybody still talks about across Major League Soccer was that Eastern Conference final against Montreal back in 2016. Producer Kev has got to start sharing the screen here so we can just watch this moment. just talk us through, for you, this night and what this moment was as a Canadian player playing in this game, and how you still look back on what went down that night.
Wow. Magical. I mean, it was a moment, it was a night that I'll never forget. And even this run right here, even though Josie, you know, his back was to the goal, he still had a lot to do. I just knew he would break through. And then I just made that run from half, and then just the desire, the emotions, and just the supporters backing us through a grim night in terms of weather and conditions. It's, yeah, like someone just wrote right now, goosebumps. That's exactly the feeling I get. And what a special night.
The whole playoff was pretty special for you, though, wasn't it, Toss? Because if I remember, you came on in every game. I don't think the team even conceded a goal when you were on there. I know in hockey they have like plus minus or something, but wasn't it 0-0 when you came on against New York, and then you scored 2 goals, and obviously you were involved in that game as well, and then you came on in Yankee Stadium when you scored all those goals as well. I feel like that, I might be wrong, but I don't think you were on the field at all when a team conceded a goal in that playoff run.
I don't remember. I just know a lot of goals were scored when I was on the field, and you know, being up there with Josie and Seba, you know, they're world-class players in my opinion, and you know, they provided me with so many options, so many goal-scoring opportunities, just from the defenders they track and from the, you know, the trickiness of Seba and his ability. It was a dream to play with those two, and you know, it showed in the goals and the performances we put on together.
Toss, I think substitutions in this tournament's pretty topical, with changing to 5, with maybe some of the performances of people coming off the bench not quite being ready and stuff like that. How hard is it being a professional? I guess I know this answer, but tell the listeners and the viewers, you want to play every game. Every player wants to be out there every single minute, every single game. And to know you're up against Javinko and Altidore, and you're going to have that starting role from the substitutes bench. Mentally, how tough is that? And what are you focusing on during the game for when your moment comes?
Yeah, it's very tough. But you know, at times you got to be realistic with yourself as a professional, and you got to always maintain your mentality, and that's what kept me always prepared, always waiting for any opportunity to get, because you know, in my eyes, I was up against giants. One actual giant in Josie, and the other one a little smaller, but a giant in his play. But yeah, it's just mentality. You know, I was realistic with the situation. I knew that, you know, I would get my minutes here and there. I just had to make the most of it, and that's what I did in Toronto, and until the end, I guess.
That 2017 team has gone down as, in fact, in one recent poll on the MLS website, I think it was the best MLS team of all time, the best MLS season of all time, with everything you accomplished. Why was it so good, and is it presumably the best group of players that you've played with in terms of the team and the quality that you're able to produce over the course of a season?
I mean, just from 2016 and the way it ended, when we came back 2017 preseason, I remember speaking with Michael Bradley the first day, and he's like, we're winning it. We're winning it this year. And that was a mentality from day one. And although we're winning games, going on streaks, the mentality never changed. It was just business. We get in the dressing room, you know, there's celebrations, there's cheers, but like, it's on to the next one, you know. And that was the whole run until the end. We're just focused, mature group, quality players, depth on the bench, and just everything aligned for us. And it was a very special season, and I think one of the best teams I've played for.
Also, I want to ask you about Canada. Obviously, you're a senior member of the squad now, but there's seemingly so much optimism right now around the Canadian men's team. Obviously, people want to talk about Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies for a reason, but I think the conversation extends just beyond those two, doesn't it? I know Stevie's involved in a coaching capacity as well, but how much positivity is it when you talk to these guys around that camp right now? And obviously, we're still waiting. We're hearing over the next few weeks that the format may come out for the World Cup, but you know, how much enjoyment and positivity is it when you talk about, you know, representing that country going forward, and maybe even being in a World Cup as early as in a couple of years?
It's I mean, there's huge optimism around the whole group. I mean, you're having players like Alfonso and Jonathan who are making ripples across the European scene, you know, attracting the biggest clubs in the world. This is something that we never really had in the past. And, you know, having those players inspires the next generation and also inspires the current players to raise their level and give them hope that we can play in a World Cup and we can do well, you know, and, you know, it starts with them, but it's a whole organization. I feel like it's an organization that is refueled and has like almost like a new beginning, you know, and is trending in the right direction. And I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy to see the growth and the success that these players are experiencing currently.
And your role within that, Toss, you know, you've got that nice blend, that culture that's building there. Do you, obviously you hope to be part of it, but do you just see that keep growing and actually this team going on to next levels and coming up with the level of performance more consistently and hopefully qualifying for 2022? Yeah,
that's exactly it. I mean, John Herdman's been fantastic. You know, he came in and he brought an identity to our national team, and the players bought in. And, you know, just all you can ask for is that growth, that continuous growth. The result against USA is huge, you know, just little stepping stones along the way. And then once it comes down to business and the qualification process, hopefully we're full swing and ready to go.
Toss, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on Footy Talks today. We've been doing this show since the lockdown hit at the end of March, and you win the award for the best background by far.
Yes, I'll tell our kit man, he'll be happy.
You know what? Before he goes, he also wins the award for the most intelligent soccer player we've had on this award. Let me ask you something. How's your education going? Maybe share with the viewers, because I know, you know, that's really important part of your life. So maybe just share with us how you are in that process.
It's been going great. I mean, I don't know if many people know. I mean, I've been in a lot of tough environments. You know, I faced a lot of obstacles and a lot of situations that many footballers haven't faced in their career. So I think this made me want to pursue a career as a GM or someone in the front office in charge of creating an environment, you know, building that team dynamic, creating those core values for a team. And, you know, that's what I'm taking in school as well. I'm doing my sports management degree. During this quarantine period, I was taking 3 classes, you know, so I bumped it up a notch, almost a full course load, which is kind of crazy to think about doing it all online. And I'm actually starting my coaching courses today. So I have a little 5-year plan set up. So I'm kind of building towards that, but I feel great physically, and I'm going to keep playing as long as I can. I'm just going to be, once, you know, it's time to hang up the jersey up there and hang up the boots, you know, I'll be hopefully ready to transition into a role in the front office or somewhere where I can help in that capacity.
That's fascinating. Just what are the sorts of things you learn on the course then, as a sports business or front office kind of course? I mean, is it the dealing with people side of things is such a big part of the job? Is it more that side, or is it more practical? Like, what are some of the things you have to go through on the course?
It's a lot business focused. You know, it's about markets, it's about demographics, it's about aligning with your core consumers and creating a bond between, you know, the fans and the team. You know, you gotta align with your market to have true success of an organization, and, you know, build that fan base, a passionate fan base like you've seen built in Toronto, and what we have here. You know, we have a great fan base, and yeah, it's a lot of marketing, but it's also managing people as well. And, you know, it's fun. It's fun to learn the theory behind it. I've seen a lot firsthand through my experiences, but it's nice to really dig into the theory and really see what it takes to be successful in this role.
Thanks for being on with us today. Really appreciate your time. Listen, all the best for the next few weeks. Hopefully we get to see you on the pitch sooner rather than later, and that MLS, has a good plan to continue following this tournament. But really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Be safe. See you, mate. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
And you can never go wrong with being able to see the highlights of Toronto-Montreal in the 2016 Eastern Conference Final. What a game that was. Thanks to Tosaint Ricketts, Nick DeLeon still to come on. You know better than anybody, Stevie, about, you know, what it's like, that transition from playing to post-playing. And a lot of players, I would assume, don't think that far ahead and don't have a plan when it comes to the end of it. But it's great to hear Tosaint Ricketts there with an idea of what he wants to do next. And I think, is it fair to say more and more these days players are looking ahead during their career and having that plan in place to maybe how it was a bit more different a few years ago?
Yeah, it's absolutely fair to say that, Luke. A lot of guys and girls and whatever sport are more focused on what's next, what their brand is, what that means to them, how they can use that to their best ability there. And I think a long time ago there was a stigma involved where you felt if you were doing an online course or you were focusing on one of your passions, maybe it's fashion or maybe it's music or something like that, it was your mind wasn't in the game. Absolutely ridiculous. Your mind can be in the game and you can be focused on other things as well, and you can be preparing yourself for that next stage of life. And quite frankly, you have to. Otherwise, you're going to go through a really difficult period where you're trying to find your identity. There's a sense of mourning because you've lost the one thing that you love, and you're really quite unsure how to take their strengths as a football player. Toss talked about them, the dealing with people and all the things that we learn as football players, and apply that into another line of work. And it's something I'm very passionate about. You guys both know I have a startup company called Horizon Leader Group, which is a career athlete transition company. We're amassing an absolutely fantastic team of people there right now. We have some managing members in Ian Leggett, an ex-PGA golfer. We have Leo Routins, as we all know, for TSN and the Raptors, and obviously his basketball career. And we have an advisory board and a board of entrepreneurs and professionals setting up a truly career athlete transition business for people. Not just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's actually taking these men and women in and saying, right, okay, we got you. We're going to help you figure out what it is you want to do next. We're going to take you into the next steps. You want to develop your brand. You want to launch a website. Do you have a degree in finance? We'll help you. We'll recruit you. We'll find you a role. And really excited. We've been at it about a year now. We're just close to really getting some serious success with this. And I honestly think that it's a line of work that's really needed within North American sport or global sport, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is. Obviously, you know better than us in terms of the athletes transitioning, but it's something you hear time and time again about from players as they're coming towards the end of their career. So that's fantastic. Nick DeLeon got to be joining us very shortly as we transition back to talking a little bit about the current tournament. TFC with that game against Montreal, winning it by 4-3. Ayo Akinola, we'll talk about him in general in a moment, but it was great to hear from Tosaint Ricketts there with his thoughts about Ayo Akinola. Each week on Footy Talks, we're now going to have the do-it-yourself play of the game, brought to you by Benjamin Moore, an encouragement for everyone to try doing it yourself, not necessarily on the pitch, but at home as well. I'm going to need a little bit more encouragement to get into all that sort of stuff. Lots of ideas on the Benjamin Moore website for how you can get doing things. But the do-it-yourself play of the game, we're going to go to the hat-trick goal for Ayo Akinola. What a story it has been for him. But talk us through that goal, KJ, and just the calmness on the young shoulders of someone like that in that position it gives you a great insight, as he did last week when we heard about him and his mentality and how he doesn't seem like a young kid who's just coming in anymore.
No, without question. I think, anybody on this chat would say that if Ayo Akinola would have just scored that goal at the beginning of the tournament out of nothing, everyone would have been shocked. But I think the greatest compliment we can give him is that when he did it, there wasn't an enormous amount of collective surprise. It was, okay, well, here's a guy in incredible form. He'd already scored a goal in that game with a one-on-one with the goalkeeper. And of course, it showed his different abilities, his strength to push aside Raitala and just dominate him like a Josie Altidore would have done, like Tosaint Ricketts told us. And then the coolness and the calmness in the one-on-one situation, just to go towards the goalkeeper and lift it over. And I said it on TSN that night, and I'll say it time and time again, for me, the greatest goal scorers, and I'm not putting Ayo Akinola in that, but I just think I've talked to Josie Altidore about this as well. The greatest goal scorers for me, separate them from the rest by their abilities in one-on-one situations. That's when you really know, you're really cool and calm, and you back your ability, and you can read the movement, you can read the goalkeeper. Josie Altidore's goal, obviously, against Seattle is the biggest example of that in the MLS Cup. But it was a sensational goal by a player in incredible form, Stephen, and I think that came from it was the confidence that he's gathered over the last few games that allowed him to be able to score a goal like that. I don't think if he came off the bench, it was his first goal-scoring chance in the tournament, for example, it would have been as successful.
Yeah, look, the strength part's impressive and the speed's amazing, but it's the composure at the end of it, like you said, KJ. It's that ability to, I'm a defender. When I get in front of a goalkeeper like that, everything speeds up. My mind starts getting scrambled. I think about 100 things in 5 different finishes. Well, strikers, top strikers, and I hope Ayo Akinola is going to become a top striker. Everything slows down. And the clear, correct way to finish off that opportunity just, comes right out in front of you. And I think with that goal, I certainly saw that in Akinola. Things just slowed down. He talked about the goal after the game. I'm sure we were all on the Zoom press conference, post-match conference, and he said, he saw Clement Diop go down a little bit early, and he knew the only option was to flick it over him. So to think like that in such a split second at that moment, and then to choose the right finish, then to execute the right finish, which is another very difficult thing, is pretty special. Like I said, we're not getting too carried away. We're so excited about the young lad, and we're seeing his development here, but he's got a long way to go before he's a Josie Altidore, or he's even a Tosaint Ricketts, or a top striker doing it consistently. But it's nice, promising signs, and the kind of attributes that he's showing are reminiscent of some of the best strikers in the world.
Nick DeLeon is here. He'll join us right now on Footy Talks from the bubble at the Disney, Swan and Dolphin hotels as TFC gets set for the game in the MLS Is Back tournament to wrap up the group stage, Group C action tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Great to see you, Nick. If you could just unmute your mic 1 sec, we'll get you on there. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Great to have you back on the show. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Luke, Stephen, Christian.
How is life in the bubble right now?
Long, boring days. Soccer's really the only outlet here for me. So just trying to fill the day with activities, books, reading, stuff to pass the time. And soccer's the escape.
So how do you pass the time, Nick? What's going on the floor right now? I know you guys have got pretty strong protocols as well. So what are you, a video game guy? Or no. So what does Nick DeLeon do apart from FaceTiming his beautiful kids?
Netflix. Usually we'll take a couple walks during the day around. We have like a mile walking path around the hotel. So I'll usually get out and do a walk or two a day, kind of clear the head. A lot of Netflix, books, and then the occasional rabbit hole. I love a good conspiracy rabbit hole, so those can get you going for a couple hours as well.
Nice.
Okay, give us the top 3 series on Netflix. What you're watching? Everyone I want to know what you're watching.
Right now, Hannibal. I'm pretty into like serial killer, that type of lane. The mentality of those people it always makes you think on another level. So it's always intriguing. Like First 48, those type of shows. That's really what I'm into. But other than that, that's about it, man. I mean, I'll watch a lot of soccer at night. And let's see. Right now, it's really Hannibal. Dude, I watch so many shows. I honestly forget. They go in, they go out. It's just to pass the time.
Chewing gum for the eyes.
There was one time I was on loan. I need to tell you guys this story. I think I was at Leeds, maybe Bradford, and my thing was the cinema back then. And I went to the cinema and I looked at the board, and there's 12, 14 movies, and I'd seen every one, guys. I'd been to every single movie. So I don't think you can get to the end of Netflix, Nick, but give it a go, mate. You might get there by the end of this tournament.
Steven, your story it lines up with it exactly. By the end of it, you're checking them off the list.
But I bet the birthday celebrations were rocking a few days ago for you, Nick.
Yeah, it came at a good time because we had an off day the next day, so I got to let loose a little bit, have a couple drinks, kind of a little escape, which was nice. Big 30th birthday, yeah, it was a milestone birthday. I think the guys made it. They did what they could to make it special, so I definitely felt that.
Annie says on the chat here that to let you know that Hannibal was shot in Toronto and the food stylist is brilliant. She has a Hannibal-related cookbook and blog, which apparently might be slightly better than the bubble food, but who knows?
Yes, I think any cookbook would be better than the bubble food cookbook.
Let's talk about the tournament so far. You're sitting pretty right now in terms of advancing. It would take an almighty mathematical swing not to get through. So even as one of the best third place teams, coming into this final game, obviously it's regular season points. Greg Vanney's talked about the fact you get an extra off day if you finish first in the group. How much does that matter as opposed to just continuing to get better as a group moving forward here with a goal much bigger than just qualifying for the next stage?
Yeah, we're kind of looking at this as a progression. You know, it still feels, for me, it's like almost like a glorified preseason tournament, something similar to that, where everybody's still getting their legs under them, and you're building game by game. You're making adjustments game by game. And that's really all I'm looking at. And as long as we're growing and we're learning every game, moving forward together as a group, I see this as a success. As far as winning the tournament, I don't think it's necessarily going to be the best soccer team. It's going to be the one with the strongest mentality. So there's just a lot of hoops and hurdles you have to jump through as far as routines getting thrown out the window, game times being, 2 9 a.m. games. It's just little random things like that. Where it's all going to be, it's a mental battle, a big portion of it. So as long as we're continuing to, like I said, progress, which I feel like we are, and the guys are very receptive to that, that's a win for me. And these points are important as far as moving forward. If there is something after this tournament, that's going to be important moving forward. So that's kind of my mindset, and I would say the majority of the guys' mindset moving forward, as long as we progress as a group and we're getting better, we're not staying stagnant. And then ultimately, it would be nice to win, but that's more important for me.
Nick, let's talk a little bit about the mindset. You talk about progression. I was talking to Quentin Westberg after the Montreal game, and he was talking about the reaction following that first game. Greg Vanney used the word embarrassed about how the team played in that second half, but you guys dug deep, didn't you, against Montreal to finally get over the line and win the game? Probably a fair reflection of how you played. How was that feeling after the Montreal game to go out there and do it? Because I know some softer teams, so to speak, may have folded a little bit more after that collapse against DC.
Yeah. I just want to mention one thing stuck out for me after that at DC game, because it definitely felt like a loss for us and more like a win for DC. Is right after that game, Alejandro Pozuelo is becoming, he's elevated to me to another level this year, leadership wise and play wise. And he was one of the first guys to rally the group and say, it really doesn't matter. We'll take our lessons we learn from that, and we move forward and we apply that to Montreal. And I feel like coming from a guy like that, with his stature, a lot of guys listen and a lot of guys follow that. And then when you go and you move into Montreal, when you play Montreal, there's always going to be twists and turns. There's always going to be drama. But you saw the mentality, you saw the hunger from the guys to keep fighting and to keep playing, and to get that win, especially against Montreal, I think was just a result of that.
What are some of the big differences with Pozuelo, Nick? Do you feel like he feels more comfortable within this squad, or we've mentioned the fitness thing? He definitely looks fitter and like he can get around the park more. Probably enjoyed the rest, I guess, from the pandemic and from the huge season he had coming from Europe, coming first of all to TFC. But, the leadership one's interesting for me because he was certainly a leader at his previous clubs. Do you feel like he's took on way more responsibility there?
I think you hit it on the head. First off, I think he definitely enjoyed the time off. It was a lot of months of consistent play under those legs. So he definitely looks a lot sharper, a lot fitter, his movements. And yeah, that's speaking for itself. He's got 5 of the 6 assists of our goals. But his biggest jump for me was just what you said. His leadership for me has gone to another level. He stepped into that role off the field, and you could tell when he first came, there was a lot of, you could see frustration, I guess. But that's not there this year. He's just more about, as I said, being a leader on and off the field. And young guys, and I mean, especially coming from a DP, you're going to get behind that type of energy and that type of leadership. So for him to do that is only going to take this club and a lot of these young players to the next level. And a fine product of that is what's happening with Ayo. I mean, my goodness, this kid he's had an incredible start.
Well, let's talk about that now, Nick, because nobody would have predicted. In fact, when we did the TSN tournament preview show and talked about potential Golden Boot winners in the tournament, funnily enough, his name wasn't at the top of our list in terms of who might win the Golden Boot. But there he is now, 5 goals alongside Diego Rossi. And one of the telling things, I think, for me has been how a lot of the players, including Michael Bradley after the game last week, were talking about how pleased they are for him, how much he's won the respect of everybody within the locker room in recent weeks before this, for the way that he's applied himself, the way he's been working so hard to get to this position. And that he's a different Ayo Akinola now to the one he was a year ago. He was on the show last week and talked about that, how much he's grown up mentally as well. So are you surprised the extent of what he's been able to achieve here coming in?
Well, his mentality has definitely changed. You can see that by the way he carries himself, presents himself, even in training. He's a lot more engaged throughout the full session. So like you said, he is maturing right before our eyes. But one thing that I really loved about after that game, he scored that hat trick, and everybody's gloating, giving him high fives, just throwing water out, whatever. It's a little party for him. And one of the things that kind of stuck out to me, and he just said, Nick, it's whatever. It's on to the next one. And to have that kind of mentality, I think is only going to serve him in the long run. You can't get too high because it is only 2 games. You can't get too low. He still has that hunger to progress and to do that every game. And that's kind of one thing I've been trying to tell him is the thing that separates players like that, great players from good players, is consistency. So you have to stay hungry, you have to stay humble, and you have to be willing to put the work in. This can't just be a little blip. You have to produce this on a consistent level. And he seemed very clear to him before I even said that. So that type of mentality is only going to serve him good for the long run.
Nick, one of the reasons why you're one of my favorite guests on this show is because the way you just talked about Ayo, the way you talked about Pozuelo, I see you as being someone who's very perceptive. You obviously read a lot of people. Is that fair in something that you are away from the football field? And also, does it help you when you play different positions? Because you're, as I said before, you're a little bit of a Swiss Army knife for Greg Vanney. You can go anywhere he puts you on the field. Does that help you when you get on the field, knowing you've got different duties to perform depending on the position you play?
Yeah, I think that's just a little bit of my personality. It's my personality trait. I'm a little more of an introvert. So naturally, I'm not talking. I'm listening, and I'm watching, and I'm observing. And I take in a lot of information that way. So I think you're right. It definitely does help me, especially with what I've become. I like to label it a Swiss Army knife. I can play multiple positions. So that's a good example why, because I am very observant, and I don't know, it's just kind of my personality. Like I said, I don't like to talk very much in public. So naturally, I'm going to listen, watch, and observe.
I also get the feeling, though, when you talk, Nick, that the squad listens, the guys sit up and take notice. And culture's been mentioned a lot about your team. And I find it very interesting, your comments on Akinola there and how he's saying next game and, looking forward kind of mentality. Is that down to the group of people and the culture that you guys have set, that when a youngster's coming in and he's starting to mature, that he completely understands his role and what his mindset has to be to achieve success, sustained success with a club like TFC?
Yeah. As being an older player, veteran now, that's a role I've accepted and I want to use. I mean, I want nothing but the best for these young guys. You can see you're there with them every day. You see the talent. And it's just about nurturing the talent, because I've seen it go the other way. where you can get a big head and then the ego goes, and then players don't want to play with you, and then it can go down the wrong road. And it can go the other way where you're not hungry enough and then you fall off. So it's about staying even keel. And for me being a veteran, yeah, that's part of my job, I feel, moving forward for this club, is to help nurture those young guys, because I want nothing but the best. I want them to make millions of dollars and have a successful career. That put a smile on my face, and yeah, I guess that's kind of the role, part of my role that I've adopted being with TFC.
What time's the alarm set for in the morning, Nick?
Doesn't matter what time the alarm's set for. I'm up at 6 a.m. every morning.
and you've been through this once before. Is it an early bed? Are you able to get to sleep? Do you just go short on sleep tonight?
So what I think the club's done really well is we've stuck to the same schedule the whole time. Ever since we got here, we've trained at we leave the hotel at 7:40. So everybody's kind of internal clock is naturally getting up early. So by now we're used to it. I just heard a story from another team who halfway was doing 9:30 trainings, going to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then halfway through they switched to doing 7:40 training. So I can only imagine that transition. But for us, it's been fairly smooth, fairly easy. You're just used to it now. And I would say 9:30 I'm in bed, 10 o'clock lights out, asleep in between 10 and 10:30 every day. So I still get a good amount of sleep. But yeah, that's just kind of the schedule we've had to adjust to. And that's not far from my schedule at home with the kids.
That's a good one.
So it's been easy transition for me.
Nick, thanks so much for taking the time. We'll let you get back to Hannibal and whatever else you've got planned for the afternoon here down there in the bubble, but we really appreciate it. Always welcome on the show. Thanks.
Thanks, Luke. And you hit it on the head. Back to Hannibal.
Thanks, Nick.
Best of luck tomorrow.
See you guys.
All the best.
Thank you.
Nick DeLeon and TFC getting set for the final game of the group stage at the MLS Is Back tournament. TFC getting set to take on New England Revolution. And we'll have it for you on TSN. KJ's on the pregame show at 8:30 Eastern time. Myself and Stevie can walk into the broadcast booth at 9:06. Having rushed into the studio. I'll set my alarm for 8:25 maybe.
Give over, man. You're almost there as early as me. You know that. You can play this "I'm walking in late" card. Like the award winner that you are. But you actually do a little bit of research. But yeah, we got tomorrow night as the game as well. So you got all your notes for that as well. So it should be fun. But yeah, early start for us.
Just from what he was talking about there about Hannibal and liking those sort of however you would describe it, reminded me of a story from when I was back in England. And Stevie, you mentioned Leeds, who just got promoted, of course. An incredible story for them after 16 years. And we were both there. Who would have thought on that day at the Reebok Stadium in Bolton in 2004 that as you were playing and I was commentating on Leeds going down, one, that we'd be reunited in Toronto all these years later, but also that it would take 16 years for Leeds to get back and for Marcelo Bielsa to just comment on that, Stevie, before I get into the rest of the story, because it's fascinating around the football world. And it's been incredible to me, not just to see how big Leeds United are, including there was a truck full of people were blaring Marching On Together out of their stereo on an open top flatbed truck going down the back of a main street in South Africa this week. It's a worldwide club that is just going to go even bigger. But part of that now is because of Marcelo Bielsa, and the way that he is revered around the world is just incredible. And even hearing Pep Guardiola talk about him today it's like this guy is a footballing god. Yeah.
The guy's a genius. The guy is one of the most thorough coaches that you could ever imagine. The detail, the lens that he went into. I read something recently. He had 8 pages of profile report on a third choice goalkeeper at one of the championship clubs. This guy is meticulous to the nth level, and he's revered because of his abilities, his qualities. And one thing I want to mention is his ruthlessness as well, which is something that Leeds needed after 16 years out the top flight. They needed a guy who had the profile and the presence of a Marcelo Bielsa, and also a ruthless edge to him. And I was watching you guys, what was the game they were playing? They were struggling. Was it Barnsley recently? They won 1-0.
Yeah.
And Pablo Hernandez, who's one of our star players, came onto the field and he subbed them off with 2 minutes to go. And Hernandez is fuming. And he's a star of the team. And, you know, most, if not all managers, you try and keep your stars on the side. And the commentator I was listening to was saying, you know, he will just do anything he feels is right to win. And as ruthless as taking off one of your stars who was sub and comes on the field because he just felt he needed the legs of the substitute that came on at that time rather than the profile of a Hernandez, shows you the levels of this guy. Delighted for him, delighted for Leeds. I think the presence in South Africa has a lot to do with Lucas Radebe, the chief. A good friend of ours, Luke, an amazing man, a legend at Leeds United. There's so many of them. I played 13 games at that football club. Unfortunately, ended in relegation. But to have such an effect on me as a football player, and thinking about how amazing it is to play at that stadium, Ellen Road, in front of the fans, and for that long road to get back there, I'm absolutely delighted. I couldn't be happier, and I hope that they have sustained success in the Premier League now.
The other thing, KJ, about Bielsa is that everybody talks about the fact that he's so distant. The players, he doesn't have regular contact with him in terms of they don't pick up the phone and talk to him. He comes in, it's a very work-related relationship. And then we see stories about him baking cakes now for the staff at Thorpe Arch, at the training facility there, coming out of his house to have pictures with fans that he stops for as he walks from the training ground to his one-bedroom flat in Wetherby. And then just to see, people have said they did not know when they got promoted if he would even smile or be happy about it on the outside. But to see those videos that the club have put out of him embracing, hugging with the players, you know, that emotion you've never seen from a man who usually just sits on his blue bucket on the side of the dugout, thinking about football 24/7. It was great to see him, having achieved so much in the game, just happy and just having that emotion about the game.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because you know what, he's made so many people happy when you watch his teams, because that's the other thing about him, is that's why you get Guardiola talk so much the way that he did today, is because Guardiola is an insatiable desire to believe that football needs to be played that way, and that is the only way. And Bielsa is obviously a massive part of that and a disciple of that. And I think about some of my favorite teams, like I'm a Bilbao fan, and he was there, and Marseille, and Chile in the 2010 World Cup. There's Argentina. There's so many areas that I remember how he made me feel watching his team. So he deserves that. And the other thing I think about is that as Stevie said, he's also legitimized Leeds again. And Leeds don't need to be legitimized in the eyes of us three, because they're a giant. You guys play, spent more. I've spent a lot of hours in Leeds, worked there as well, a little bit of PA, but I spent a lot of times at Headingley and at Ellen Road for different games, different sports. It's an incredible, incredible sports city. And they don't need to be legitimized in the eyes of us. They're a giant amongst the clubs. But around the world, you can't tell me that Bielsa's not been offered big clubs during this time. He could have easily gone to another club during this time, the amount of change and chopping you have in that position. And he didn't, and he stayed, and he believed, even after they failed, and they collapsed a little bit at the end of last year, going down like that in the standings, and didn't get up. So it's great that they're back, and I'm looking forward to Bielsa in the Premier League and having another great character.
Yeah, a lot of people said that. In fact, Pep Guardiola said that today. He's looking forward to having Marcelo Bielsa in the Premier League, and for everyone to see how he does and what he's all about. And the other thing he said was, it's not about what you win; it's about how you win it and how you play it and how you make people feel.
Yeah,
Marcelo Bielsa has always been, true to that. I just wish you'd had the chance, Stevie, to go through what's described as one of his murder ball sessions that he tends to do at most clubs, where I think they do it on a Wednesday, middle of the week, and all the staff have balls around the side of the pitch. There's no stoppages. They play. Every time the ball goes out, another ball comes back in. There are no fouls. There are no free kicks. No corner. They just play and play and play. And the Leeds players have said that if you don't perform to the standards he wants in that game on the Wednesday, then you're done for Saturday. You've got to play that. And they say, and a few different, there was an article about it in The Athletic about how a few different players who've played with him at different clubs have been through this session, say it's just the hardest session they've ever had to go through.
Yeah, but you're better going through it on the Wednesday at training than on the Saturday at 3 p.m, normally in front of 40,000 people. And so this is the key with guys like that. They know what they want. They know how hard it is to achieve it. And so you need to get to levels of fitness to then have the quality to play like that. And how many goals have we seen them score where they break really quickly, or how many times there was that famous Twitter clip where I think they were running back. There was like 7, 8 of them streaming back, like, it was the world was going to end. KJ, it's absolutely amazing. And the things you do in training, we've learned a few things here today from Toss and Nick and experienced guys in terms of Ayo Akinola at the start of his career. But the things you do in training, they come out in the game, and coaches, players, subs, whoever you are, your identity every day of the week comes out on a Saturday. So you need to keep that consistency up day in, day out. Bielsa does that better than anybody. His players get it now. He's got a group of guys who believe in his methodology going up to Premier League. And I think with a couple of good additions, they'll stay there for a long time.
So how did you link Hannibal to Leeds, Luke?
Okay, I'll get there in a second. Jonathan Wilson, on Zoom, Schulich School of Business says, Jonathan Wilson covers Bielsa wonderfully well in his book, Angels with Dirty Faces on Argentine Football. 10 out of 10 read. What a figure. Must be on KJ's bookshelf. If not...
It's actually not. It's one of the Jonathan Wilson books I haven't read. I've got many Wilson books here.
I'm reading Jonathan Wilson right now, the Inverting the Pyramid.
Yeah, I've read that a couple of times. Terrific.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So how we get from Hannibal to Leeds United is that actually when I was commentating on Sheffield Wednesday, former Leeds player and Sheffield...
Your other club, Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, John Newsom. Don't know if you remember him, but he played...
Yeah, I remember John.
Including Norwich City, where Martin O'Neill was his manager. Martin O'Neill had an absolute fascination for murderers. He would spend a lot of his time reading books about them, studying them. Norwich had played a game at Bradford City, and there was a well-known murderer called Peter Sutcliffe.
That's right.
In Yorkshire, of course, a long time ago. Martin O'Neill, after the game finished, told the Norwich team as they were leaving Bradford, they were just going to take a slight detour on the team bus on the way back to Norwich after the game because he wanted to go and visit the house of this murderer. So the Norwich team bus drove there. He got out, had a look at the house from outside where the murderer lived. They all thought this guy was absolutely crazy. He got back in and they drove off back to Norwich after the game. So yeah,
guys are happy with that. Yeah,
but you talk about Bielsa, Martin O'Neill. Yeah, can you imagine after the game? By the way, we're just gonna pop by this murderer's house just so I can get a couple of selfies outside. Just before we finish, KJ, who's been your top team so far at the MLS Is Back tournament? Let's bring it back to TFC. And Carlos asks, which team do you think TFC would rather play in the next round? And he talks about Orlando or Philadelphia maybe being an option there.
Okay, I'll take that answer. There's another team in yellow that Stevie and I love. I'll let him talk about them. I'll talk about Philly. I wouldn't want to play Philly. If I was TFC, I'd rather play Orlando. I know Orlando have been, been very impressive in this tournament. We commentated on their game this week, Luke, and I just feel like they're a lot weaker than Philadelphia as a team. They're still evolving. They've got some good parts. What I like about Orlando now is that I feel like that Nani is blending into the team rather than the team building around Nani. So they're actually playing well when Nani's not involved a lot. Mueller's obviously bringing a threat on the right-hand side. Pereira is, not Pereira, as Pereira in the number 10 a lot.
Or his manager, Pereira.
Exactly. There was a time during the game this week that Luke and I Pereira took off Pereira to bring on Pereira. So I was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do here? But thankfully, all three of them were in the conversation after that. So I do think Philadelphia are tougher. Although, TFC are at the point where they're not going to be intimidated by anybody. Philadelphia are a team. I do like their midfield. I think they outwork a lot of teams. Aronson is a very special player that is going to be bought by a good team in Europe. And he's going to have a tremendous career for me. Very elegant player. Montero, I want to see a little bit more from him. I think he started to bring to the game in the second, the legs that he brings in that midfield. Bedoya always brings that as well. And Shabalko's a goal scorer. I like a lot of their centre-backs. I think they've got the best left back in MLS right now in Kai Wagner. So Blake's on fire. Probably playing the best of his career as well, by the way, after a couple of down years. So I would not want to play Philly if I had the choice. So win the group, and then obviously that won't be a problem. But Stevie, I know you like a team in yellow as well.
Yeah, I do. Just one quick one on Philly, because I like them as well, KJ, is the signing of Martinez in the middle of the park there. You mentioned everybody else, and they've got so many quality players. But this guy's combative, sometimes on the edge of that, the line that you can cross. But I think he's brought a lot of bite to that midfield. He's freed up Bedoya, he's freed up Montero, and of course Aronson will run for you all day. I agree with you on him. Brilliant player. A team to watch for sure, and look pretty solid at the back. But the best team in the tournament for me so far, all round, is Columbus Crew. Team in yellow that you're mentioning. Terrific. They've been so good. They look like they've got goals from different areas. They have a nice blend of experience. They have a bit of youth in there. They have a style of play that I think's interesting, exciting. They're solid at the back. Superstar in Zelarayan, brilliant in the middle of the park, number 10 role, dictating the play. Zardes looks like he's up and running. Options in wide area. Diaz came off the bench. Mokhtar's been there. Look really, really exciting. Midfield's got options as well. And they, for me, are the best team. Now, do I think TFC would be scared to play them? Absolutely not. LAFC are bashing in goals left, right and centre, but they're vulnerable at the back. They won't be scared to play anybody as well. So, there's 4 or 5 for me that are in this tournament for sure. And when push comes to shove, if you put a gun to my head and you say, choose a team, I'd be choosing TFC and LAFC ahead of Columbus Crew and Philadelphia Union. Yeah. But I like I like these 4 teams, KJ, for different reasons. And I think that all round so far, Columbus Crew have been the most rounded team.
I agree.
And just finally, what do TFC have to watch out for tomorrow, KJ, with New England Revolution?
Well, we're going to have to find out if Carlos Hill is fit. He came off, and that's a massive part of their team. There's nobody else like him on that team. So if he is fit and able to play, they're a very different team. They're actually, Stevie mentioned 4 elite teams in this tournament. They're not far behind him. They're in the top 10. They're a decent team. They're a real threat down that right-hand side. Be interesting to see what Greg Vanney does tactically on that side, because in Gustavo Bo, they really have an elite player in Major League Soccer, a player that can come short and really do well with his back to goal, but bring other players into play, because then defenders follow him, and then the space revolves, and Hill does that run inside, or even an outside to in run as well. And they have a really good relationship, Stevie. So I think that is where really the gears start to go up between those two. They've got a good number 9 in Buxer as well. And Caldwell and Rowe have developed a tremendous relationship in a double pivot. They work really hard for each other. Panea's like the runner on the left-hand side. So they've got a good team base right now that Bruce Arena's really brought. There's not a lot of chopping and changing. They've got a lot of, continuity about them. So there'll be a tough out, I think, here, particularly if the Spanish Wizard plays Hill. Yeah,
they need him. I think that Buxer gives them that presence up top. He doesn't get involved in a lot of the play. Leaves that to Bo and Panea and Carlos Hill, and Buxer's a guy who's got, like I said, the presence in the air, can put the ball in the back of the net. Unusual partnership with Caldwell and Rowe. I'm surprised how good it's been. I have to say, Dylan Rowe has played a lot of games in his career in wider areas. He's now in a double pivot in the midfield, but they've been brilliant, KJ. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was super impressed with them against the Impact. It wasn't a great game against DC, and they're a horrible team to play DC United, but they were a bit average for me in that game. So I don't really know what revolution we're going to see come out tomorrow morning. But Hill's the man. If Hill plays and you get that partnership between Bo and Hill, and even Panea stretching you in the wide areas, there'll be a challenge. But if he's not playing, I think they become a little bit predictable.
Thanks, guys. We shall see you tomorrow morning, 8:30 Eastern time on the TV for the pre-game show, 9 a.m. kickoff, TFC against New England Revolution in the MLS Is Back tournament. Thanks to you for being with us on Footy Talks, presented by Benjamin Moore. Great to have everyone along for the ride. And thanks also to Tosaint Ricketts and to Nick DeLeon. Once again, great couple of guests giving some excellent insights. So we'll see you tomorrow, TFC New England. Until then, have a great day.